always do a reset to say, okay, have I got my fundamentals strong? The problem with all of us is in this journey to ape quick technology, new technology, is we forget the base. So I'll always say any reference point that you want to start with is go back to your base. What is your customer telling you? Do you know your customer? And do you have enough insights about your customer? Start from there. Everything else, starting from that point, will automatically give you an answer whether you want to do 60-40 human versus technology or a 90-10 technology versus human CX experience for your customer.
CX show, the Engati CX show. And I'm your host, Rahul Panikar. And today you folks are in for a treat. And we have a customer experience expert with us on the show today. But before I introduce you to our amazing guest, allow me to introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform available across 14 channels with 35,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. And now for our amazing guest, we have none other than Ajay Nambiar in the show, and he is the head of customer experience in L&T Realty. He's a keynote speaker and has been an active chair, speaker, and panelist in over 30 international CX seminars like CCW, IQPC, CEMA, Otis Club, the World AI and RPS Summit, etc. His specialties and he specializes in customer experience management, customer service organization building, operations and benchmarking, service quality, revenue maximization, and cash flow management. He has also been featured in the top 150 global CX through thought leaders for 2020. So welcome to the show, Ajay. Such an honor to have you on board today.
Rahul, thank you so much. Pleasure to be on board. Very, very interesting format. And thank you to Engati also for actually doing something very innovative in this space. I must admit, very, very nice. I think it's a great platform for thought leaders to share their points of view and also grow the small but very, very discerning space of experience management. Tremendous value to be part of this. And I think it's a terrific platform. A wonderful job done by Engati. And thank you for having me on board.
Really appreciate that. The honor is ours, Ajay. So straight up jumping on to the first question. I hope you're ready for this, right?
Happy to.
Awesome. So let's just start with the basics, the fundamentals, right? So what exactly is customer experience management and why does it really matter?
Okay, good. Let me give a little background, Rahul. What I really love in what I would speak and what I can share is from my own experience. I think that's what adds value to the audience and to the people that we reach out to. And there's in today's world of instant gratification, words are tom-tommed around like nobody's business. So there's not a great complicated word of customer experience. I think it's the base for anything that we do. Mahatma Gandhi in his famous speech himself stated that, right? That we exist here for the customer. It is just what we are, just what we do as individuals, as family members. When you have guests home, the experience of your guest is customer experience, right? Your experience when you go to a friend's house or a family house, when you go over and meet families, is experience. It's no different in anything that we do. So if you reduce it to a very basic experience, it would be, what would my experience be when I interact with people, interact with a product? It's the same experience that a customer would come to expect with you if you're delivering a service, or with your product if you actually are in the product space. I just kept it very, very simple. However, if we come down from a business point of view, I think every business exists to make profits. I mean, that's the basic. You exist for that. And the way to do that is you obviously want to have your product either the most popular, most widely used, the most accessible, and you have got an audience who's using your product or desires to use your product. How do you reach out to them? A, to come and try your product, Either they do it because they see a very, they see a lot of marketing promotion around it, or through an experience of another friend or a colleague or somebody they've heard it from, right? And when they try the product, that is when they experience what your product or service delivers at a very basic level. And if that product or service is able to deliver up to their expectations and beyond, they'll be happy or delighted at a very basic level. So if that sort of gives a context, I think that's experience. From where I've come, I've spent my career equally in hospitality, technology startup companies, and real estate is my latest assignment. It's the same even in these three. Fundamental to me, hospitality, because that is like a foundation school to teach you how service is done, because it's all one-on-one, people-to-people interaction, which is what I love. So, I'll spend a lot of time when you ask me questions, I'll always come back to a people-to-people interaction. Though I will also tell you how technology aids. Technology doesn't solve the problem, it just helps making it that much more convenient. So there is technology which is today new, wasn't there when we all started out, but I think it is the whole universe is fundamentally how does one interact with the other at a human level.
Absolutely, and I must tell you that I really love the way you've put it, because it's as simple as treating your guests when they come over. And giving like a really pleasant experience to them, because obviously your customers are like your guests. Absolutely loving that. But talking about this guest and the experience that we give to this guest, right? So, and there are many ways to do it also. And some people are really confused as to how to get started and, and how to get their foot down there. So, with your experience, what according to you is the best way of getting customer experience management right?
Okay. That's interesting. How do you get it right? Okay, let's play a bit of a Lego building blocks, right? Let's make some building blocks.
All right.
What's the fundamental? I think I'm not getting into deep stuff like the organization's culture, etc., though we may touch upon it, at some point.
Right.
At a basic level, if you are starting out on this journey of wanting to build the building blocks of good service, be it a product or a service, either one of them, I think to start off with, it's very, very important to know your customer. I mean, who is this person who's buying from you, right? How do you know that? So, I love this example of peeling off an onion skin. Everything, if you just do it from asking that question, why, you will come to the core of, at an answer. So the building block for me is, of course, getting quantifiable and qualitative data. Mm-hmm. It's the foundation. Right. You need to know your customer before you can do anything, because otherwise you could actually build a very expensive, a very long-term solution, but it has not addressed who your customer is. Right? So at the base is the data, and it's good to be patient. This is not it's an overnight success formula. It takes time. First is to have good quality data. And again, I'm qualifying it as good quality data, not data. Any data is of no value.
Right.
Right. So good quality data. Basis the data, you can then fundamentally you say, okay, now I have my data. Now I can qualify my customer. I can put my customers into buckets of personas, define who your customer is, and you can define what kind of service do you want to deliver to him. Okay, so while I'm using, it goes a little bit off in terms of, okay, now how, it's very, I can't make out. It's what are you talking about? So once you build the data, I think you then put your processes in place. Right. This I'm talking at an operational level, right? Once you define, you got data, you analyze your data, you put your processes in place. That's how I go about it. So I'm not saying this is the world's only solution, but this is how I've done it practically in my 3 decades almost of experience. Right. Is to first study the data, understand your customer, build processes around that, because that is very, very important. Once you build the process and your processes are stabilized, it is always good to get somebody to come in certified to say, hey, I think your processes are good. Now let's see if what you're put down as processes, and I'm saying it at such a fundamental level, Rahul, that at a lot of times people put down processes, but what they actually do versus the process is not related.
Right.
So it's always good validation to have an external party come and tell you, okay, you've written a process. I am just coming to check whether you're following your process or not. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that and you've achieved a little bit of maturity in saying, okay, I've defined my process, I'm doing it. The next step would be, okay, now let's start, because this is very inside out looking, right? This is, I'm doing it from inside the company. I'm only doing it. And I've not taken the input of the most important constituent, the customer.
Right.
So I now would say, all right, now let me start taking the feedback if what I'm doing works. So this moves to an outside-in approach, which to me is very, very important, because no matter what you do, the temperature will always be felt with what the customer thinks or perceives and not what you think. Right? And one of the studies, I love this study done by Bain, where they asked organizations, please tell us how customer-centric are you? Yeah, and around 80% organizations CEOs came back saying, we are very customer-centric. They asked the customers of that very organizations, what did they think? Do you know the result? Only 8% agreed.
Wow.
And that's a reality. In an inside-out outlook, you always think you're the best. I mean, obviously, because there's nobody to tell you otherwise, right?
Absolutely.
But in an outside-in approach, which to me is very important, and to the audience here, there's a wonderful book done by Forrester called Outside In. I think it's a terrific book to read, which gives you that kind of an insight. So let's look at it now from an outside in. So you then start your surveys with customers, right? Whether it's mystery shopping, you do CSATs or a touch point survey or an NPS score. That then builds the quality of the organization closer to the customer, as opposed to just a very inward-looking organization. And no matter what the pressures in life, use that data to tell the organization what customers are saying.
Right.
These are done through multiple modes. You can do it through technology. You can do it through a survey. You can get a brand and health survey done. Plenty of them that you can do, but that tells you the health of the organization. Very, very critical. Now, the second part is great. You got the feedback. This is another, I think, Kantar did a very nice survey on this, that they found that, oh, very nice. Suddenly people are saying, okay, Ajay Nambiar said, get data. We've got lots of data, but we did nothing with it. There's another organization which says, all right, we've now got great insights from the data, but we took no action on the insights. All these are a stepping stone. I call them building blocks, that there's no point in doing it to please your boss or please, just make fancy presentations. At the very core of this is that data gives you a thermometer check as to what is the feeling of your customer. Is the temperature very high? Do you need to take corrective action? Is it too low that you're taking no action? It tells you that. So once you build that, I think then it's a question of continuous improvement. You keep on looking at feedback and keep improving. My apologies.
That's okay.
So that to me is the base. If that's in some form answered, how does one build a stack? I think that's the simplest way to build a stack. And of course, along the way, you leverage technology. And I'm not missing out technology, because in today's context, I think technology has been the biggest barrier breaker. Sure. I don't mean by geography or by culture or by organization or by product. It is irrespective. It has been, and I was fortunate to be part of two startups in this country. One was when telecom started in this country in the late 90s, and part of the first private ISP when we got internet. To all the youngsters who are 20, 25, etc., or my children, they all assume that internet always existed as it is today. In those days, it was not. You needed a dial-up connection. You didn't have mobile phones. You had to put it on your computer. Speeds were at 64 kbps and lower, and there was no question of video or audio. It was only text.
True.
To where we are today. So I think technology has probably been the biggest enabler to bring down the time to respond, or the time to innovate, or get closer to the customer. A very, very important part of that journey.
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, if we try to put it, so it's more like a philosophy to be followed rather than like a new process or a procedure or like a new thing you do in an organization. And correct. Plus with right data and observing and taking the correct action according to that data will actually improve the experience of the customer.
Absolutely. There is no fancy jargon. There is no one size fits all. To me, it is like a marathon run. Well, I run marathons, so I'm maybe biased. Usain Bolt may be very upset that I don't talk of sprints, but to me, it's a marathon where you have to do a 21 or a 42 kilometer. You can't start off with a sprint. You have to pace yourself that you last the entire 21. So basically, you're building a very consistent, high quality, sustainable model that is not person dependent, but can run on its own and continuously innovates and improves, self-improves the processes or the product or whatever it is, or the service, depending on which area you are in.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you realize this, Ajay, but you've just dropped an Engati gem by saying that CX is more like a marathon and not a sprint.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
That's an Engati gem right there, folks. It's exclusively right here. But talking more towards, one of the biggest confusions that people are having and organizations are having related to customer relationships. So that's the basic key difference, right? So, and there's a huge confusion. So, and I'd love for you to clear it for us that what is the key difference between customer relationship management and customer experience management?
Okay. Again, I love these words. I'm a very, very simple guy, Rahul. I do things. I do things because they make sense. Right. They are practical, and I think we lose a lot in today's world going by jargons and not going to the heart of what it is all about. Right. So let's take what relation. If you ask me, one is a subset of the other. Relationship management is a subset of experience.
Okay.
Yeah, because a relationship is fundamentally a one-on-one. That's why it's a relationship.
True.
If I use technology, since we are talking, and this is good, it's a technology platform. It is what is the difference? And I hear this in so many of these conferences that I host or I speak at or I panel. That, oh my goodness, I'm very confused. Should I be doing AI or should I be doing machine learning? And I tell them, if you don't mind, one is a subset of the other.
Sure.
So machine learning is a basis which you will do some AI, because without any learning, the AI is of no value.
Correct.
So to me, relationship is your machine learning, and experience is your artificial intelligence, which is all encompassing, which sits over and above it. So that's like the parent umbrella.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense because so we have a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and a lot of young business people who are actually considering customer experience and all of that, and they're trying to get deep in. So this was one question that always comes up, and it's wonderful how you put it that at the core of it all, at the heart of it all, it's about providing a pleasant experience for the customer.
Correct.
And maintaining that relationship.
Correct.
Absolutely. And Ajay, now jumping to something that is in talks, that is artificial intelligence. Like and especially post the pandemic, it has been like the curve has been very steep. So in the future also, considering the present situation, how according to you can artificial intelligence improve CX in areas other than just marketing? Maybe.
Okay. I think let's leave aside the pandemic for a moment. Mm-hmm. I think irrespective of the current situation that the world is encountering,
right.
Technology has been taking rapid strides. It has changed. Around 7 to 8 years back, close to 10 years back at a conference, the buzzword was big data.
Right.
So, you guys like me can feel it in our bones because the flavor of the conference changes towards whichever is the flavor of the season, right?
True.
So big data, everybody spoke of big data. Now big data is passé. Now it's all about AI, ML, IoT, virtual reality, augmented reality, so it's, and now, oh my goodness, these are big words. And not just amongst people in the industry or in the know, but also suddenly it becomes a competitive advantage for somebody to say, hey, you know what? I've got a chatbot. And in a lot of these conferences that we get to speak with the audience and amongst ourselves, is people have only done it because the other guy has done it, not because it made sense to the organization. To me, at a very fundamental level, that's why my initial start at this chat that we've had is you need to have a very strong foundation and have the building blocks in place.
Correct.
The same applies to an application of technology. You don't use technology just because somebody has it or because it is available. It has to be basis of pain that you have or in something that you want to address within the organization. Technology can alleviate that, can take care of that for you.
Right.
If you come with that fundamental, that, okay, here's my problem statement. I, for example, have a lot of customers wasting a lot of my agents' time in transactional queries. Example, I'm just taking an example, right? And I've applied this in wherever I have worked, that the transactional queries add no value to the customer. They add no value to the organization, and there is a drain on your organization resources. It increases your cost and makes you less profitable. Now, if I can use technology to alleviate or take away those transactional queries and leave the time for the human-to-human interaction on more intense topics or intense queries, I have addressed two very key things. From the customer's point of view, he'll only get in touch with you as a person if his basic queries are not resolved.
Right.
And not get in touch with you for basic queries.
Right.
Because to him also it's a pain. Today's time is all about convenience, time, my time as a customer, it's very valuable. And I want it done right now and I want it consistent, right? So technology can help you with that. Post that, if you don't, then of course there is a human-to-human interaction, which has a longer time. You address the customer's query. So, and this again is continuous improvement. So if I keep on looking at an 80-20 principle of all your trouble tickets or your complaints that come in, if I can keep reducing that and using technology to make it simpler, delivering the result at the customer's end, that is at his convenience, I think you're already improving your customer experience.
Sure.
In simple terms.
Sure.
So AI, like you asked me, AI I think is very, very important. How does it get used? I'll again give a context of how it could get used in our context, right? So I worked in organizations where it's a question of the volumes that you handle in terms of traffic. Right. If in real estate, the volumes are very low because you're selling a very luxurious product. You will never sell it in millions as of now, unlike say e-commerce, which does transactions in the millions.
Right.
The experience would be a little different. For me, at real estate, we don't really need to do it that quickly. But should we be doing it? We are going through that journey now. We started to use that now to say, all right, can we take away the transactions, make it easier for the customer to be able to at the punch of a button get the information related to his product. We're also seeing the government bringing in policies in place to simplify, bring it online on the internet. Registration of properties, for example, the government is now planning to do that, to digitize it. And thanks to the government, I think the current government is very, very clued into digitization. Right. I think that helps a lot. So the minute customers can do things now, he could be sitting in New York and he suddenly can see the details of his property. He doesn't have to fly down to register. He can register from New York. Wow.
Sure.
Right? I mean, to me, that's a wow. There's no one huge eureka moment to have great experience. I think these are these small, very focused, very small tablet-sized improvements that can give the customer such an amazing experience. As one example. On the other one, when volumes are very high, my sense is if you can move away a lot of the transactions, which is what everybody does, that the customer can self-help. Today, self-help is through AI on a chatbot or AI on WhatsApp. Or I love the fact that today there's conversational IVRS with natural language processing. Okay. Wow. In fact, when I was booking a ticket for my daughter on one of, through a website, and this is not an Indian website, I was amazed that they asked me for, the customer code, and with an Indian accent that I have, and I gave the customer code, it recognized it. It gave me all the details and took me through an IVRS, which was conversational IVRS. And the fact that the NLP was India-centric too, it could identify Indian accents. Right. Brilliant. And this is a country which is very, very small. It's in New Zealand, but they had a IVRS platform which could recognize Indian languages. Wow. Indian accents, sorry, not language, Indian accents.
Right.
Tremendous.
Amazing. And I absolutely love the fact that you brought up real estate and the way technology is actually kind of enhancing that also. So these are certain small things, I think, which is making the future look very fascinating. and especially with the IVRs that you spoke about, and we at Engati. So we at Engati, we follow philosophy of making everything human centric. I mean, yeah, you can have chatbots, you can have the conversational agents talking, but how comfortable is the customer talking to it? The CX aspect of things, and how is it making it smooth the transition from a robot to an actual human agent?
Correct.
These are certain small nuances that we focus on too. So, and I absolutely love the fact that you've linked both the ease of having solving the questions that I have as a customer at any point of time that I want,
Correct.
and in whatever accent that I have, and absolutely love the fact.
I wanted to also give a context. There was a very nice research done by PwC called Future of CX.
Right.
So I use that as and it resonates with what I have learned or gained over my years of experience. Very, very, very well researched. So they built it on 6 pillars. They call it the 6 pillars. PwC called it the 6 pillars of the future of CX.
Right.
I will just read them out as what these form, and I'll give you the context of how AI as an example of technology also ticks the boxes in this. Right? So, for example, one is personalization. Very, very important, right? I mean, you will do it. You will do it. So this is one-on-one marketing that I would do it for Rahul. So Rahul feels that this communication is to him.
Right.
So that's very important as one of the pillars of customer experience or service experience. The second, again, these are not in any particular order, is integrity. Integrity is about culture, about what the company's ethos is, what does a company believe in. Very, very important. And the fact that you are trustworthy and reliable. Very, very basic for a good experience.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just lip service, right? It's just saying things but not doing it. You will be out of business very soon in a hyper-competitive environment like today. The third is expectation, which keeps changing. What is today, wow, tomorrow would be very basic.
True.
Right? And if tomorrow, I'll take an example of real estate. Again, I'll take an example of a contextual. Till RERA, which is a regulation act which came into India in 2016, prior to that, it was whatever the developer said the buyer had to go with.
Sure.
So post 2016 and RERA, people started, some of the developers, the better ones, started using the fact that, hey, if we promise you 4 years, we'll deliver it in 4 years.
Absolutely.
So that may have been a very small percentage of developers who actually did it on time, right? The rest, they did get delayed. In today's context, the fact that if any developer says I'll deliver on time is no longer a wow, because RERA has forced you to deliver on time. Otherwise, the penalties are so high.
True.
So what yesterday was a wow, today is a basic.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's on expectation. Fourth, very, very important, time and effort. Everything is related to time and effort. Everything. For you, if I delay a response, it'll agitate you. You want it instantly. Today it's all it's a fast food world. It's instant gratification. I want it right now. If I can't imagine, my daughter's in an environment where internet doesn't work. Whereas if you ask me, yeah, I've existed before without internet. I can go without 24 hours of internet or even maybe a month of internet. But I can't imagine the generation today being disconnected. It's like, you've taken away the heartbeat from them. So very, very important, time and effort. The fifth pillar is resolution. Anything about experience, and resolution has couple of things. So if you look at what customer experience or customer effort, etc., is a customer will only come to you when he has a problem. Fundamentally, in hotels, it was very easy for us that the problem is a customer would tell you on your face, and you're actually geared and trained to deal with handling, resolving, not just talking sweet to a customer and pushing the problem to tomorrow. Resolution is very important.
Sure.
In the hotels, we call it service recovery. When if there's a problem, let me first recover right now. And over the long term, now, one of the very interesting conversations in a conference was, hey, why don't we make service recovery as a model? And my point to them was, don't ever do that, because service recovery is you're addressing a problem. So you can't be saying, let's throw more money to cause more problems and resolve it.
Correct.
You can only resolve a problem, but you have to also make sure it never comes up again. And that is progressive improvement. right? And the last is empathy, which I think we all understand. So now if I just convert this to artificial intelligence, does it in any form address personalization? Of course it does, right? Integrity, yes, it does, because it is consistent. It won't break down. You won't have people with different responses because the response is standard. Consistent. It may be wrong, but can be corrected. But it's consistent, right? And it will be there like the marathon run. It will be there for eternity till you change it or the rules of the game change.
True.
Expectations, great, because I want instant gratification and I can do that. You talk, I answer. You talk, I answer. If I can't respond, I put you on to somebody who can then take it on from them and close.
Correct.
So it's great. Time and effort. Does it save time? Sure, it does. Effort for you, lesser effort for the organization. Initially, great to build the groundwork, but after that, it becomes a seamless exercise for the organization also. Great value. Resolution focused, of course it is. If my responses don't solve an answer, then I have a route to shift a machine response to a human response. So I maintain that sanctity, but the focus is still on resolution. Empathy, of course it does. So I recognize you by name because I know who you are. I talk to you as you are. I can tell you things that you have done in the past with me. I can ask you, is it contextual? I can do so much with you. And you feel that, hey, I'm not talking to a machine. I may be actually talking to a human being. And if the transition between the machine and the human being is seamless, then you don't know the difference between when did I interact with a machine and with a human being. Absolutely. That, of course, is the holy grail. But to me, it ticks all the 6 pillars of what future of CX or customer experience is going to be.
Great. And I absolutely I agree with you on every single point, because it's more of about tailored, consistent, and great experience provided. You can't miss out on anything, and one single miss, and I mean that's difficult, because
yes, that is true.
The competition
People
is
have very, 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 very low thresholds of patience in today's context, and that can So you're right. This thing of WhatsApp and social media for a business can either be very crippling or paralyzing, or it can be a great tool for continuous improvement to keep addressing issues irrespective of people's opinion. I know people's opinion can sway the way the business goes, but as long as the business knows in which direction it's heading and it takes a feedback as constructive, I think it's a terrific play between the outside-in approach of customer giving insights to you and the organization using that to keep improving within the organization, like a ripple, as a ripple effect.
True, absolutely. Wow, this was a wonderful conversation, Ajay, and I can't express how fascinated I am with the different aspects of things that you've broken down and showed like proper, vision, given proper vision to each and every aspect. But while closing this conversation, I have one last question left for you. And
Sure.
and that's pretty open-ended also. So are there any other thoughts that you'd like to share? Any sound bites or any ideas? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, especially young ones, who are trying to kind of start in this game of CX. So any other thoughts or ideas you'd like to share with our audience?
Sure. I will. Thanks, Rahul. I think it's been equally exciting for me to participate too on this. And I think, like I said at the beginning, it's a tremendous initiative by Engati. To do something, to bring thought leaders who can actually speak from their experience. And if you it'll be a good thing, Rahul, to probably share with the audience also that if you just take the collective years or tenure of all the speakers on your platform, my sense is it'll probably be in excess of 500 years. I may be wrong, but it could be in excess of that. That's tremendous. And in today's digitized world, for that to be available to anybody at any time, to access it, I think it creates a legacy for y'all. I think that's tremendous. So to come back to your point, yes, there are to whoever it is that is either starting out on this journey, it could be one. Second, somebody who wants to do it better, right? Or third, somebody who's doing it very well but wants to know what next. To all three of them at a very fundamental level, I think in all this hype, it is always good at some point. And this is what probably COVID, the pandemic has taught us all. Life has come down to zero for all of us.
Right.
irrespective of who you are, we are at ground zero. So all of us, it's like a reset button, right? So it's great, even in this context, if you ever want to, that always do a reset to say, okay, have I got my fundamentals strong? The problem with all of us is in this journey to ape quick technology, new technology, is we forget the base. So I'll always say any reference point that you want to start with is go back to your base. What is your customer telling you? Do you know your customer? And do you have enough insights about your customer? Start from there. Everything else, starting from that point, will automatically give you an answer whether you want to do a 60-40 human versus technology or a 90-10 technology versus human CX experience for your customer. Everything will start from that base. And it's always good to do it once a year. I do that, is go back to zero and say, okay, if you have to start this again, what do I need to do? It's a tremendous exercise, but I think that has great value. Please don't get overawed or caught up by jargons, technologies, because all these will keep changing. However, your customer looks at you from, if you just look at those 6 pillars that I've shared with you all, if you can just apply those 6 pillars to everything that you do, you will have your answer, that you are not going away and giving a solution which is not favoring the customer, who's the guy who's keeping you in business. From that context is keep it simple. Any decision, come back from a problem, start with a problem area. Yeah. It is not about, I want a technology, now let me find a problem to fit that technology. It has to be that I have a problem, and now let me find, can technology or a technology and human intervention aid me in resolving that problem or making it easier for my customer? Very simple logic. So I don't know if, I'm sorry, I don't give the textbookish or long gyans about, strategy, etc. To me, it's very, very basic. What is an expectation? If I go back to hotels where I started my career, the guest who walks in, irrespective of all the jazz of keyless entry, you can, robotic entries, robotic food delivery, at the base, when he walks in, he must be recognized. He'd love to be recognized. He would love to be taken to his room. He would love for his room to be there. He would love for his room to be clean. He would love to have a great F&B experience. And along the way, whoever he meets, to have a wonderful experience interacting with them. And then he leaves. It's a guest who comes to your house, has the same expectation. Great that you opened the door, you greeted them, you seated them, you'll had a conversation, you'll had some drinks, you'll had a meal or snacks, and you shared each other's experiences, and you shook hands, and it was a bye-bye. And he left the door. When you closed the door, he came in with some experience, and he went out with a very happy experience. Sure. If you keep that at a context, at a base for whatever you do, you will have a much stronger, rounded, long-term based experience strategy.
Absolutely. And well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Simple, straightforward. Ajay Nambiar for you guys. Well, thank you so much, Ajay, for giving us your time. Your insights were amazing, and I can't stress on the fact more that our audience are really going to be happy and they'll be enjoying this interview that you gave us.
Rahul, thank you so much, and thank you, Engati, once again. My pleasure to be part of this tremendous, very, very insightful and eye-opening platform, if I can call it that.
Appreciate that. And we will be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you so much.